going to be temporarily removed, and at the end they will be totally removed. For example, now we are more or less at the end of the evaluation of the silage additives. We have a lot that are already placed in Annex 1. Some others, they have been also placed in Annex 2, and they have been withdrawn from the market. So we have, let's say, a clean registry now. And little by little, we are doing the same with all the others. This is just for a general information, because we have a lot of work with the reevaluation. We have more than 1,500 substances. So we have to organize the process very carefully, and we were doing this since 2008 with the Commission and the Standing Committee. In 2008 and 2009, also, in order to help applicants for the preparation of the dossier, we have several stakeholder meetings in different countries in the EU to tell them how to do the dossier. Since the start of the evaluation, and these are just the beginning of some lessons that we are learning, the quality of the dossier has been very variable. We have also some provisions for the water for drinking. And then for the first time also we have some additives with an authorization for water for drinking. Our intention was to put together multiple applications. However, it was not possible due to the data protection issue. So we have, in some cases, the evaluation of the same active ingredient, but in different opinions. We have the issue on the user safety. If it's a generic product, so without the holder of an authorization, it is difficult to evaluate the user safety. The user safety is evaluated considering the product to be placed on the market. So in the case of generic, we can evaluate one of the preparations that will be placed on the market, but all the others, we cannot do it. Generic, non-generic, we have been discussing this before, and the flavors, which is really another world of additives. I will come back to this. Here are some other lessons learned. Some applicants, we identified that they have extensive data sets, while some others, they have to really restart from zero, more or less, so what we say de novo. In some cases, we have an over-dependency of history of use. So yes, we consider the history of use, but we need also some data. It's not only enough to the panel to say, it has been used since the last 30 years. Yes, it has been used in the last 30 years, but we need new data, for example, on antimicrobial resistance, which can change the previous decision or the previous conclusion on the history of safe use. You can see the work in the panel. They have been increasing terrible in 2010 and 11. Then in 2012, it goes a little bit stable because we have a lot of questions to the applicant. So the clock was stopped, but it doesn't mean that we are not working. It means that we work on all the other parts where we don't have questions. So this is the trend, increase, increase, and increase. Things we learn, and here we have very interesting lessons. A lot of feed additives are also food additives. So virtually all the feed additive is a food additive. A lot of flavorings, they have been reported to be used at very high levels. So the industry always reported very high level. And we identified that it's not always shown to be safe, these high levels, and we really reduce the level. We propose maximum levels. Some colorants, we saw that they are not safe for the animals. So in this case, we have the Allura Red. We have an opinion on cats and dogs. We know that the exposure to Allura Red, which is more higher than in humans, and during during the whole lifetime of an animal, it is not safe for the animal. In some other cases, we may be giving animals too much of some trace elements, like selenium, like iodine, or some vitamins. So we are proposing the reduction of the maximum levels for certain categories or animal species. Some microbial additives in the market are not safe. For example, we have some issues on antimicrobial resistance and virulence factors. In the case of flavorings, as I said before, it was a new task for us. We identify high use levels. Applicants requested, in many occasions, the use in all animal species, which makes the situation much more difficult because we need a lot of data. The quantity of data is very, very poor. We do not have enough. We have to make a lot of extrapolations. The use in water also posed a problem because they all asked for a use in water, but at the end, they were not really using water. So with the data set that we have, we are working. We know the difficulties. In some occasions, we have to use very high safety factors to compensate for the deficiencies in the toxicological package that we have. But here we identify, for example, that isoeugenol is a fish anesthetic. So it's not good to put this product in fish. These are some of the lessons that we learned. The coloring, the Allura, as I said before, there is an opinion on this product. For the trace elements, we have a whole series of issues and a whole series of proposals or recommendations to the Commission. In the case of cobalt, we set maximum levels and we restricted to only 3 species. In the case of copper, we identify some issues on antimicrobial resistance. Some indications still on antimicrobial resistance. In general, we indicate maximum levels. In the case of vitamins also, in reduction of the levels in feed. So all of these strategies are given in the opinion for the Commission to take a decision once they are doing the authorization. Antibiotic resistance was quite important, and we identified it in 2 cases. Antibiotic resistant and toxigenic potential for some Bacillus species. What's next? Well, you cannot believe it, but we have to still continue with the botanicals, with more technological, the coloring, and we are receiving a lot of dossier on the coccidiostat. So we still have to work on this. We identify also new scientific data, and we are updating the guidance on the Bacillus, safety of the Bacillus species. We are in the reevaluation, but we are approaching the renewal. So after 10 years, so the first authorization under 1831 entered into force in 2004. So it means in 2014, we will start with the renewal. So we are not ending the re-evaluations, and we will start the renewals. So never-ending story. And we have more and more new feed additives in the different categories, even also for the coccidiostat, different type of combinations. So all of these keep us, the panel and the unit, of course, quite busy. The panel, as I said, a lot of experience. We counted here more than 500 years of working and research experience. They are not all 500 years, but if we put all together, all these expertises, we count 500. In the different areas, we are much younger. So thanks God for this. We are 2 teams providing all administrative and scientific support to the panel. Here is the chair of the panel. Well, here he's not the picture, so the name is Christer Sergersen. And I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Claudia. For 500 years working, huh? ครับก็เขาก็เล่าประวัติเล่าไม่ใช่ประวัติฮะหมายถึงการทำงานของเขานะครับว่าเป็นอย่างไรบ้างมีเมื่อกี้ผมแซวประสบการณ์500 ปีเนี่ยก็คือโอเคถ้าทำงานมาอย่างนี้นี่แสดงว่ามีความละเอียดถี่ถ้วนแน่นอนทุกซอกทุกมุมนะครับนั้นก็เป็นแนวทางนะครับสำหรับใครที่จะขึ้นทะเบียนผมบอกว่าก็ไปจดทะเบียนกับที่ EU ได้นะฮะโดยต้องมีเอกสารหลักฐานต่างๆฮะโอเคไหมครับเดี๋ยวเราจะเก็บคำถามไว้ตอนท้ายเนาะพอดีผมมีจดคำถามหลายคำถามเหมือนกันแหละที่เราจะถามแต่เอาไว้ตอนท้ายดีไหมครับอย่างนั้นเดี๋ยวผมให้ทางกุรุนเขานั่นก่อน Okay, Gudrun, your turn, please. We will leave the question after this, after your session. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will give you a quick summary of the marketing authorization procedures on feed additives. So the essentials of these marketing authorizations are that we are not allowed any antimicrobials as feed additives anymore. That's been phased out, and I don't think that those substances will return as feed additives. We have this discussion. I see the colleague from who's attending the Codex committees for Thailand as well here. We have this discussion worldwide. The idea behind that is that you don't want to use antimicrobials anymore if there is not a therapeutic need. That's a therapeutic need, at least in the European idea, has to be evaluated by a veterinarian. And feed additives can be administered without veterinary interference, and that essentially keeps them out of the realm of feed additives. So a pre-marketing authorization is necessary for feed additives anyway, even though the distribution is different than medicinal products. You have a positive list, so you have a list of substances which can be used. So the products can be placed on the market and used in feed additives under conditions. So it's not only that you are on a positive list, but you have to be on a positive list also with several details to be mentioned. The type of feed and the amount added, which is very important. As Claudia said, some of the substances that we have in feed additives, like the cocciostats, are very narrow in their in the amount that you can use. So if you don't use them correctly, you're not only having a problem with potential residues, but also maybe the positive things that you wanted to achieve, they are turning into the quite opposite, and you're killing or making the animals sick by using too much. So there is always a tendency in farmers, we see that use more and you get better results, but that's not always the case. So then obviously that became also apparent on one of the examples that Claudia mentioned, is you cannot use everything on all animals. And we also know from veterinary medicine that there are many products that you cannot use on certain types of, even on certain parts of the species. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many things you cannot use in cats that you can use in dogs. So that has to be mentioned as well, because the toxicology might differ between species and even between certain aspects of species. Then we have a current register that is a result of it, which has, for the time being, over 2,000 substances. I think there are even 2,500. We're getting close to that now. So there is an enormous amount of substance that is used. And it's also very difficult for those people who are using these substances to know what is the best one. So you need some sort of expertise. I guess that will be also a subject in the veterinary university, that you tell people or get an expertise in the veterinarians also what is the right additives. And there are also specific rules on labeling of additives and premixtures, which are also mentioned there. So this is a sort of a safety net existing from pre-marketing authorization, the positive list, and further specification on how to use the substances, and to make some of the aspects specifically well known, or to highlight, then you have necessary labeling that is informing the person who is using the stuff before using it, if there's any problem. So the Commission regulation 429 on the preparation of the presentation of the applications. Claudia mentioned that you have to provide a complete dossier that is regulated here. And the regulation 1831 of 2003 is providing the basic legal requirement for the authorization. So you have to make an application. That means that we always need somebody who makes an application for a certain feed additive, and that, as we have seen, that results now in the fact that for some substances that we have on our list, we don't have anybody who's defending them, and they risk to falling out of the list if nobody provides the data. And an authorization shall not be granted, refused, renewed, or modified if suspended or provoked, except on ground under the procedure set out in that legislation. And it's mentioning, it's making also a reference to Article 53 and 54 of the General Food Law. These are safeguard measures. So if we encounter a problem in the member state or from imports that on a certain feed additives, we have the possibility to react there more or less immediately in the way that we already discussed yesterday. We have the possibility to ask EFSA on a statement and then take preliminary measures, and then the substance will be re-evaluated out of a problem triggered by a problem that's been observed in the market. And the applicant for the authorization or the representative has to be established in the community, or as we now say after the Lisbon Treaty, in the Union. So everywhere where you read in the legislation community, it has been replaced by the Lisbon Treaty by Union. So this is a question that is, I heard several times, that is answered in this slide. So we have an authorization, and we have two types of authorization. We have authorizations for feed additives where we don't need the holder of the authorization to be specified. That is technological additives, sensory additives, and nutritional additives. This is a risk assessment approach because these types of additives don't create so much of a problem of overuse, misuse, and so on. While the others, the technical additives, which also include growth promoters, and the coccidiostats and the additives containing GMOs are considered of higher risk or higher sensitivity, and those have to have a holder of a marketing authorization. So essentially that means that we want to have somebody who is taking care that the product is produced with a quality that is the same, that is also supplying the same efficiency, that there is a product which has a brand which has a precise prescription on how it is to be used, and that somebody is also monitoring what is happening with the substance, whether there are side effects or any problems related to it, so that this is taken care of. So we have an authorization which is valid for 10 years, and then it will be renewed. This is also grown out of experience that we see that especially with additives, you have to watch how they're used, what is happening when they're used, and you also have to see whether it's still necessary to use this kind of substances in agriculture. Because as they can be used freely, there's also a lot of selling from the producers that sort of convinces farmers to spend money maybe on substances that are not really effective, and that is also something that you want as an economy, you want to reduce that at least, so that you don't have additives unnecessarily in your animals. So there are conditions of authorization which are reflected then afterwards in the entry of the lists. It has to satisfy requirements, and it has to, at least one of the characteristics that we referred to already before, so it has to have a certain effect. There's no additives just for no reason at all. There are obviously also implementing measures that are possible to be authorized, and we often talk here about delegated acts. Maybe I should say something about this in general. We have always the possibility, we have two, or let's say we have 3 tiers of legislation in the community. We have first of all the treaties, which is sort of a constitutional level, which we have 2 treaties, one of the European Union and one on the functioning of the European Union. And most of what we deal with in our area, in food safety, is in the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. So there, the European Union has received powers from the member states, which are given from the member states to the institutions to regulate things. Then we have so-called basic laws or primary laws, which are the big regulations like 1831. And on the basis of this, we can also enact legislation, so-called delegated and implemented acts. So, which means, as opposed to this kind of regulations where we need something like 2 years to get them through the Parliament and the Council, which are the those who can adopt legislation. Delegated and implementing acts, we don't need this specific time, but the Commission gets some limited powers to regulate certain so-called non-essential issues, which means certain technical issues on a less tedious procedure. And this is always important to have, because otherwise you need always 2 years to react on something, which is very long. And most of the time it needs even more time than that. Like Patrick said yesterday, for a major reform we need something like 15 years. So, it is also important that we notice what additives should not be, and that is regulated in Article 5. They should not have an adverse effects on animal health, human health, or the environment. That's why Finland, for instance, has always a concern about the environment. They take the third bullet point very, very dear to their hearts. And obviously, even if you can have a huge effect on growth promotion and you get very big animals, if they are suffering, we would not be or get into a bad health status, we would not be tolerating that as well. So everything has to be not only balanced with or evaluated from a toxicology point of view, but also from a general point of view. So there should not be harm to the consumer by impairing the distinctive features of animal products, or what is also important, fraud should be avoided. So if you create something which is leading the consumer to fraud, which means, as I said, that you say a feed additive is producing or is creating animals that are growing twice as fast as normally, and this is not really the fact, then it's misleading the consumer of the feed additives. Or if it's saying that you get less fat in the animals if you feed them that, and it's not really true, this is also a problem. Also, this kind of fraud is regulated. So the conditions for authorization mainly need that they have to have a favorable effect, and we already focused on that before. Antibiotics shall not be authorized. They have to belong to a certain category. They have to be in functional groups, which are mentioned in the annex. So we have an application that Claudia already went through, which is informing the member states only before the member states were doing the evaluation, and that has been abandoned after the coming into force of that regulation. We go through the evaluation process, which is managed by the EFSA, as we have seen. Then we get an EFSA report, in this, for example, a product with zinc. If you have an EFSA report, then the opinion is forwarded to the Commission, the Member States, and the applicant. There will be a review of the report. The applicant can say that EFSA maybe didn't consider data properly, or they can say something about that before we further process the report. It might be accordingly amended so that something is corrected, which has maybe due to a misunderstanding. And also all of the opinions will now go into the public. After the opinion has been finally published by the agency, we have in the Commission 3 months to proceed with it. If it's not in accordance with EFSA, this is also possible. And this is what we call other legitimate factors in the Union, which is something that is addressed in the General Food and Feed Law. If you look there at recital 19, it lists some of the other factors, which is the feasibility of control, social aspects, and so on. So certain things can be considered. It could also be animal welfare considerations, for instance, that would say, no, regardless of all the positive effects that an additive might have, for certain other reasons, we don't want this additive on the market. But this has to be explained in detail in the recitals of a decision, or has to be explained by, if it's leading to a non-authorization, it has also to be explained by the Commission. There are detailed rules on the implementation. That is something that Claudia already referred to, and then we cannot repeat it often enough. The GMOs are in the Union something very particular. We have many member states who are very concerned about this. So the so-called new approach on GMOs allows member states to prohibit the cultivation of certain GMO crops on their territory, and therefore it's also anything that is linked to GMOs will have to have a very specific look at that it fits with the rest of the Union legislation on genetically modified organisms. And then we have the register, which contains the category, the functional group, the code, the additive itself, the reference to the Union Act, so that there it's important, if you see the reference to the Union Act, you have to, where it has been authorized, there we will see the recital, the justification, and sometimes it's important to understand why a substance is in and why it is out, to look at this in detail. And there you also see the first date of entry, which then also indicates when the substance has to be evaluated after 10 years, and also when it's potentially maybe not marketed, if cannot be marketed anymore if there is no applicant behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gurun, I think everybody have some clear picture or any question? Please feel free to ask our guest speaker. We will have lunch until 12:30, so it doesn't mean that we have no question, that we can get to run. I don't think so. Huh? Yeah. Yes, Dr. Sasi. Maybe Dr. Sasi เป็นหน้าม้า
หน้ามาจบปริญญาตรีนะครับผม
DVM